good programs for their communities. Radio is better than ever in targeting an audience that listens to what you say. Learn more about this exciting radio broadcasting opportunity by calling WNZK Radio at 248 557 3500. This is WNZK, Dearborn Heights, Detroit, your ethnic superstation at 690 days, 680 nights.
الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا الحرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK Radio 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning, Michigan. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues.
And welcome, everybody. This is a special edition of Two Guys on Politics and U.S. Arab Radio. We're merging the two together. I have a special guest. Bill Lipinski, he was a former congressman. He served from 1983 until 2005 in the 5th and then the 3rd District in Illinois. And probably one of the smartest guys, centrists. And, you know, we describe ourselves in Illinois as Reagan Democrats, a little conservative, Democrats in a almost completely blue state. Bill Lipinski, welcome to the program, Bill.
Thank you, Ray. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
So I was just explaining to everybody, you and I do this podcast every week on YouTube called Two Guys on Politics. You and I thrash through all the issues. And we decided today that we're going to combine it with U.S. Arab Radio's Friday morning broadcast in Detroit, which is 8 a.m. out there in Detroit. Our number, by the way, for listeners, if you want to call in and ask us a question, we'd be happy to talk to you. Bill Lipinski, like I said, is he understands the political system better than anybody I know. I've covered him for years, going back to the 70s when I was at the Southtown and the Chicago Sun-Times. And he stays involved in politics. And if you get a chance to listen to our podcast, you'll know you're really going to pick up a lot of insight from him in terms of what's happening in this presidential election race. U.S. Arab Radio is brought to you by Layla El-Husseini. She runs the radio show Monday through Friday mornings and in the evenings. The Two Guys on Politics, like I said, you can go to twoguysonpolitics.com, which will take you to the YouTube channel to see our stuff. Now, our number here is 248-557-3300, 248-557-3300. Bill, let me start with you, and we'll see if anybody wants to join in. We'll be on for about an hour here at WNZK AM 690 Radio live in Detroit. Actually, Michigan, Ohio, and the Windsor area in Canada. So maybe some of the Canadians who left this country will be coming back when they hear this. So, Bill, how does the election look in your mind at this point with Trump and Vance and Harris and Walz?
Well, I think it's very close, but I think the Democratic ticket is leading slightly at the present time. I think they got a significant bump when Joe Biden decided not to run, and they got a new presidential candidate. The individual that they have selected for vice president is really my son was in Congress for 16 years. He knew the vice presidential candidate for the Democrats quite well. says he's a very, very nice guy, very down to earth, very friendly, very easy to get along with. But in the House of Representatives, he was a moderate. As he ran for governor of Minnesota, he moved more and more and more to the left. Now, this helps him in the Democratic Party with the extreme left-wing progressives of the Democratic Party. I think it helps her picking him. But Minnesota was going to be a Democratic state, so it doesn't help that way. The progressives seem to be having some problems being renominated in the Democratic Party. So far, 2 of the members of the squad have gone down to defeat 2 more moderate candidates. So I think this is going to be really a long, long campaign, because I think we're going to be hearing about it each and every day, because I think it's going to continue to be close. I don't know who's going to win it at the present time. I think a great deal will depend upon how Donald Trump conducts himself. He has a lot of good policies. I personally like many of his policies, but truthfully, I can't stand him personally. I've never voted for him. I never will vote for him. But at the same token, the Democrats are too far to the left for me. Even though I was a Democrat my entire 30 years in politics, I was always a Reagan Democrat, which is far too conservative for the Democratic Party of today. So my hope is that whoever wins the presidency, the opposite party controls at least one of the 2 houses, so that we have real checks and balances, because I don't want either one of them to dominate the governmental process. I was in Washington when the Democrats controlled everything and when the Republicans controlled everything, and it was not good for the American citizens. That's how I feel about the situation at the present time, Ray.
All right. Our number again is 248-557-3300. I know when people are listening to radio, they're trying to remember the number and they want to call in. So we'll repeat it over and over again so that you can pick up that phone and call us and tell us what you think. 248-557-3300. I know you're driving around there this morning trying to get some stuffed grape leaves and lamb for lunch later today out there in Detroit, all you Arab Americans and Chaldeans. You know, Bill, we got a big Chaldean audience, which are Iraqi Christians. They don't consider themselves Arab, but they do obviously are Middle Eastern, and they do share Arab culture. It's a unique little thing. I think in Chicago, where we're at, we have the Assyrian community, which is a non-Arab Middle East community of mostly Christian also. It's interesting, but those Chaldeans are big. But, you know, you had mentioned something that I thought was interesting. You know, Biden, there were a bunch of swing states like Minnesota that Trump had taken, but in 2020, Biden took it by, I think, 230,000 votes out of 6 million votes cast. The Abandoned Biden movement, which is a group of Arabs, Muslims, progressives, and African Americans, a lot of African Americans are supporting this. They decided not to vote for Biden, and they took about 120,000 votes away from him in Minnesota. In Michigan, it was much closer, and they took almost 100,000 votes away from him. So in many of these swing states like Wisconsin and Minnesota, I thought Harris picking Walz was good only from that perspective. I don't know anything about Walz. He doesn't bring name recognition to the election, but he brings Minnesota, and I think he brings it back to, you know, the potential to bring it back to Biden. I just don't know if Arab Muslims and progressives are going to vote for Harris or whether they're going to go for a third-party candidate. So it's going to be interesting to see that. But these third-party candidates, they also play a big role in taking votes away, both from Trump and Harris. What's the real role of third-party candidates? What's the real impact on presidential elections?
They've been nothing but spoilers in the past. when Ross Perot ran, he actually took enough votes away from Bush to get Bill Clinton elected president of the United States. Normally, they don't have that much of a significant impact. Now, it's possible that this time around, if he would get some more publicity through the major networks, I think Kennedy could have that much of a impact. He's got the magic name in Democratic politics. Kennedy, if he could shorten his answers to questions, it would help him also. But every time he's asked a question about an issue, which he knows very thoroughly, he writes a book about it.
Right.
By that I mean
that's a sign of somebody who feels that they don't get a platform. So when they get the mic, they just can't stop talking. That's
Absolutely.
popular in the Arab community. You know, the media shuts us out. So every time we get a chance to talk, instead of giving fast, sharp, pointed, important answers, we just yap forever. And then in the end, nobody understands a word that we say. But yeah, Kennedy is like that.
Well, I think that Kennedy could possibly get enough electoral votes to prevent either the Democrats or the Republicans from getting sufficient electoral votes to be elected outright. And then it would be thrown into the House of Representatives. And what would happen then, it would be very, very difficult to say at the present time, because we don't know what the makeup would be of the House of Representatives. And underneath that scenario, each state gets one vote based upon what congressional individuals make up the majority of the state, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. Now, where we live in the state of Illinois, we know it's overwhelmingly a Democratic state.
Right.
So
it'd be one vote.
Pardon?
It would be one vote in Illinois, right?
Yeah,
probably, and a Democrat, and it would be a Democrat.
For Democrat, yes, absolutely.
Got it. So that's it. And I want to interrupt you because I want people to understand this. So we have Harris and Trump in the election. They have to get 270 electoral votes to win, and I think there's something like 500 or something, or 540, I think, or something. And you need to get 270, which is one more, I think, than the majority or the split, the 50-50 split. If Kennedy, and by the way, Jill Stein, now I don't know, Jill Stein is very popular in the Arab and progressive community, but as you point out, third-party candidates, the most you can expect is a protest. This election, maybe they could take votes away and actually prevents one of the leading candidates like Trump or Harris from getting an electoral college win in a certain state, one or two states. But one or two states could, cause what you were just talking about. It could prevent Trump or Harris from getting that 270 electoral votes. So then it comes down, as you say, to 50 votes. One vote for each state based on the party that won the state.
Well, it's based upon how many congressional seats each party controls. Now, it's possible, just take Wisconsin. Harris wins Wisconsin, but there are more Republicans elected to Congress. So that state actually would, in the House, wind up having to vote for, the Republican candidate.
So that's interesting. That's fascinating. And I want to explore that and explain that more and drive that home to our listeners, because that is really an important point. The fact is, Robert Kennedy could prevent an election win, but there's no way, even if he prevents it, that a Republican or a Democrat would vote for him as the choice. It still probably would come down to Trump or Harris. I'm Ray Hanania, everybody. We got to take a quick break here at WNZK AM 690 Radio. I'm on the line with my special guest. He is my podcast partner. We do a podcast every week from Chicago called Two Guys on Politics. And we thought it would be interesting because of the election season to bring our podcast to Arab Radio here in Detroit. to open the doors to listeners. If they have questions about the upcoming convention, if they have questions about the impact of third-party candidates like Jill Stein or Robert F. Kennedy, now's the time to call 248-557-3300. I know you're waking up. You're probably eating some great Middle Eastern food this morning, but I'm telling you, it's important to understand what's going to happen so you don't be surprised. And we'll talk about some of the issues that they're coming up. Our number again, 248-557-3300. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll return with my special guest, former Congressman Bill Lipinski. Spent 30 years in politics from the Chicagoland area, and he's here with us to talk about the election process and the battle between Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, and Robert F. Kennedy and Dr. Jill Stein. We'll be right back right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you.
Ziyad brand, quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Are you going to start a restaurant or a grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Najee Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Najee Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design. Location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Najee Abood, 734-744-9796.
Hey, Michigan drivers, are you sending or answering group chats behind the wheel, checking emails at the light, calling family or friends on the commute? Michigan's hands-free law makes it illegal to manually use electronic devices while behind the wheel of a vehicle. Breaking the law could mean fines or even community service. Go hands-free, just drive. It's the law. Learn more at michigan.gov/distracted driving. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
And welcome back to Radio Baladi. We have a special edition on our radio show here at WNZK AM 690 radio, broadcasting live in Detroit and the Windsor, Canada area and in Ohio. I have our special guest, Bill Lipinski. He co-hosts the podcast every week with me called Two Guys on Politics. TwoGuysOnPolitics.com is our YouTube podcast, which gets a lot of followers. For some reason, every time we mention Robert F. Kennedy in the podcast, you get 500 to 5,000 listens. If we just talk about Harris and Trump, we get maybe about 150 to 400. So I don't know, Robert Kennedy, he just doesn't seem to be doing great in the polls, but he can certainly have an impact. Our number, everybody, is 248-557-3300. I know you're all eating that full medemus, which is that Egyptian breakfast, okay? Now get off, pick up the phone and call us, 248-557-3300. Bill, when it was interesting.
Let me interject
Yes.
here. You talk about this Jill Stein.
Yes.
Now, to show you how difficult it is for a third-party candidate, I follow this stuff pretty closely, all right? The only person I ever hear talk about Jill Stein is you. I have not heard one single
Yeah.
other commentator
There's a
radio
media blackout.
or
There's a media
television.
blackout. It's the
The
media.
Well, it may very well be the media, but I mean, she gets no publicity. She gets no traction.
You're right.
She might be a great candidate, but as I say, no one tells me anything about her other than you. So I don't think she could have much of an impact. Let's go back just for a minute to the Ross Perot. Ross Perot was a billionaire. Ross
Right.
Perot spent millions and millions of dollars of his own money. He didn't get one single electoral vote, okay?
Right.
He did take sufficient votes away from George Bush in order to allow Bill Clinton to become the president of the United States. But, you know, that's the only impact he had. He didn't get one single electoral
Right.
vote. So we're talking about Kennedy getting enough electoral votes to throw this into the House of Representatives. I personally would like to see that happen. But Kennedy's got to sharpen his game if he's going to get sufficient people to vote for him.
So he would have to win one or two states, right? That would be that the leading candidate would have taken had it not been for him to throw this to the House, which, as you point out, is very difficult, especially when the media is narrow, laser focused on, I think, Kamala Harris is their main candidate. And then, of course, the right media, which I don't think is as big as the left media, their narrow focus is on Donald Trump. And Kennedy, you don't read many stories about Kennedy except negative ones. And you read nothing about Dr. Jill Stein, who is, by the way, Jewish, smart. She's just phenomenal. She's from the Green Party. It doesn't mean that you agree with all of her policies, but you're absolutely right. She gets no press. But I will tell you that here's the issue facing Arab Americans there are like 6, 7 key states. And I think their impact is narrowed down to one option. Arab and Muslim voters and their supporters can prevent Kamala Harris from winning the presidency in those 5 or 6 swing states by refusing to vote for her. Now, they may vote for Jill Stein, who won't win, but they could prevent Kamala Harris from winning, and that would turn the race over to Trump. So that's a big challenge that, Arab and American and Muslim voters have. Do we protest? Do they protest against the way they've been treated by the Democratic Party under Biden? They're very unhappy with the Democrats. And that's not to say they don't support Democratic candidates, because a lot of the Arabs and Muslims support Democratic candidates. They're just upset with the party leadership. And do they do that and then allow Trump to come back in? And then we have disarray for 4 more years and anger and protest. And I think Kamala Harris said that at her last public presentation when her speech, when some of the Arabs in the audience were protesting against her. She said, "What are you saying? If you're saying you want Trump, why don't you just say it?" Something to that effect. And I'm thinking, well, Kamala, you're going to miss an opportunity. Instead of reaching out to them, you're going to lose them, and it could cost you the election.
Well, you've talked to me about the large Arab and Muslim vote in Michigan, and I'm reading more and more about that vote in both the the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, how significant and important that vote is in Michigan. Now, if the Arab Americans and the Muslim Americans don't vote in that election for the Democratic ticket, more than likely Trump is going to win the state of Michigan. And I really think it comes down to if Trump wins the state of Michigan and the state of Pennsylvania, he cannot be stopped from being reelected, I will say, president of the United States. That's why I was really very surprised that the Democrats didn't select the governor of Pennsylvania as their candidate. Very articulate, a much more moderate individual than they selected in a state, that they really need in order for Trump to win. Now, I have my own thoughts on why they didn't select him. I won't go into that at the present time, but I think they selected the wrong guy.
Yeah, and look, that brings us to this. I don't understand Trump's selection of J.D. Vance, who was a senator from New York. Why did he pick somebody from the state of New York? When I'm not saying that New York is not an important state, it has a lot of delegates. But is there a chance that Trump could win New York? I mean, why wouldn't he pick a running mate from a state like Michigan, where he lost to Biden in 2020, or Minnesota, or one of these other states where you would think having a running mate would bring those votes? Isn't that the strategy of a running mate? Or did they just pick it because he happens to like him and they can have coffee together without arguing and nobody will challenge him?
Well, first of all, let me say that even a political expert like you and a political expert like me are prepared to, unfortunately, put Vance in the wrong state. You put him in New York. He's not in the state of New York.
That's true.
I am about to put him in Pennsylvania, but I really think he's from Ohio.
Yeah, wait, I'm going to look. See, that's part of the other thing. To me, the American politician from Ohio, you're absolutely right. He is from Ohio. Ohio, let's look up real quick the Ohio Trump Biden 2020 race to see what the difference was, to see how critical that state of Ohio was. Trump took that by more than 500,000 votes. He took Ohio. State. Yes. So, and again, but it goes to my point. I get, J.D. Vance, their personalities connect like two pieces of a puzzle. But was that the right move to pick somebody from a state that chances are it's not a swing state? It used to be the state, right? In elections, Absolutely. They said whoever takes Ohio becomes the president. Forget about everything. Today it's Michigan and Pennsylvania, as you point out. But why would you pick somebody from Ohio unless you believe it doesn't matter and I'm going to win? You just do whatever you want.
Well, I think that Trump is arrogant enough to believe that. But I think he picked Vance because, Vance at one time called Trump Adolf Hitler a number of years ago. And he's had a number of other very derogatory things to say about Trump. But then he got elected to the U.S. Senate and he started having his eye on the presidency. And he thought a good stepping stone would be to be vice president. So he started playing up to Trump. He was wrong about Trump in the first place. Trump was a great president. Trump would be a great president again. He's sorry that he called him, the American Adolf Hitler. Trump loves that. Here's a guy who was really, to use the street language, sucking up to him as severely as you possibly can. And a guy who will do exactly what Trump tells him to do. So that's why he picked him. No, Ohio is a Republican. If Adolf Hitler ran on a Republican ticket, he'd probably carry Ohio. Now that's going to an extreme. Ohio is as Republican as Illinois is Democratic nowadays.
Yeah.
So they're not going to move. It's the swing. I don't consider Minnesota a swing state. I consider Minnesota being a Democratic state.
Right.
Michigan is very, very important. Wisconsin, I still think that Wisconsin favors the Democrats more than it does the Republican. But Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania, to me, are very, very significant, important states. To me, if one candidate wins both of those, that person will be the president of the United States. If the Democratic candidate can win one or the other of those, I think that the Democrats' candidate will be the president of the United States.
All right, listeners, if you're done with your full indemnis, which is an Egyptian breakfast, I'm telling you, pick up that phone, 248-557-3300. We're not going to bite your head off. If you disagree with us, we would love to talk to you about your issues. A lot of Chaldeans out there, I don't know how they're going to vote. They're mainly conservative, the Chaldean community. I think a lot of Chaldeans actually support Trump. They don't support the Democrats. And you got to remember, this isn't hatred for the Democratic Party or a love for the Republican Party. It's the candidates in the Democratic Party and the Republicans in the Democratic and the Republican Party. The Republicans have pushed the Arabs and Muslims away, and they don't see a difference between Palestinians or Pakistanis, Iranians, or Chaldeans. We all look the same to Republicans. They don't believe that Christian Arabs like myself exist. We're non-existent, even though my mother is from where Jesus was born, and he would have been a Palestinian if he hadn't been crucified. But Democrats, on the other hand, they put their arm around the Arab and Muslim community, smile, and then stab them in the back when it comes to the Middle East. So a lot of Arabs and Muslims, they're going to vote against Harris, even if it means Trump is going to win, just to prove a point to the Democratic Party that you cannot take that segment of your party for granted and think that, just because the boogeyman is the alternative, that they're just going to fall in line. It's either principle or sticking with the party. We have to take another break again, and we're having a great discussion about the Trump Harris race and the two independent candidates, Robert F. Kennedy and Jill Stein. Our number is 248-557-3300. On with me is on the line here and my podcast co-sponsor of Two Guys on Politics, Bill Lipinski. He was in Congress and politics for 30 years or more, and he still remains active in politics today. He's probably one of the smartest political people I've known, covering politics for 45 years. So we have him here, and if you want to understand how to win, okay, you're going to pick up that phone at 248-557-3300 and ask. Maybe you don't care about winning. Maybe you're just mad. Maybe you just want to make a point and you're angry and you're just going to kind of mull in your stew in your anger. You could do that, or you could wake up and be smart and make a real decision. Should I vote for Harris, and if she becomes president, use that? Or should we try to do something else? All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back right after these messages.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most. And make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493.
What's my ETA?
Your estimated time of arrival is 9:17.
I'm late. I'll have to punch it.
Speeding will save you just 1 minute and 36 seconds. It will also increase your risk of a crash, as well as the odds that you will be stopped and issued an expensive speeding ticket.
Yeah, but...
In 1 year, there were 22,000 speeding-related crashes in Michigan, resulting in 200 deaths.
If I had someone in the car with me, I'd drive slower. But it's just me.
This is not a logical response. Though you have no passenger, surrounding cars contain 27 others, including 5 children and 1 Labrador retriever.
How do you know all this stuff?
I know everything, Kevin.
Your risk of a crash increases with every mile you drive over the speed limit. So slow down. Speed enforcement is happening now. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bottom, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
And welcome back to Radio Bellady, and it's a special edition of the show, hosting Two Guys on Politics podcast, which is a podcast that I do every Thursday with former Congressman Bill Lipinski. He was in politics for 30 years, elected, I think, in 1983. Bill, did I get that right? And you left in 2005?
You got it right.
Yeah, and that was a pretty long time to be in Congress. And what was interesting during the first half of the radio show, and by the way, for those people listening to Two Guys on Politics and the podcast, this is a special 1 hour show, which is being broadcast live in Detroit on WNZK AM 690 radio. Our number, by the way, for listeners who are hearing us live is 248-557-3300, 248-557-3300. It's going to be a longer podcast. It is August 9th, 2024. And from the podcast standpoint, this is season 3. Episode 23. We're talking about the election. We do have a caller. Ted is on hold. Let's bring Ted on. Ted, welcome to U.S. Arab Radio and Two Guys on Politics.
Hello.
Hello, Ted.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. So what do you think is going to happen in the election?
I think Trump is going to win.
Okay, why?
Why? Because people are tired of what we see of open border.
True.
12 million people came in after Biden came in to the power. 12 million illegal people come to the country. This is a lot. When they asked Kamala Harris why, she said, we have secure border. How that can be? How?
Right. Yeah, we don't have a secure border. We have more focus, and I think, Bill, you agree, right? There's too much focus on migrants and illegal immigrants, not legal immigrants. It's great to have legal immigrants, but illegal immigrants are wrong.
I want to correct you, Ray. They are illegal aliens, is what they are. That's what they were called for years and years and years. But now all of a sudden the Democrats have decided that simply migrants. But they come here, they get more benefits than many of the people that are American citizens who are down on their luck temporarily.
Like veterans.
Or permanently. Veterans, I mean, they get, in Minnesota, they get a driver's license. They can drive in Minnesota. And many states, they not only get driver's license, they get places to stay.
They get money, they get food.
They get a stipend.
And that's coming out of your pocket, Ted. That's a good point. It's coming out of your pocket, Ted. Ted, are you, you mind me asking, are you Chaldean?
I am Chaldean, yes.
Yeah, and again, no, and it's interesting to me because the Chaldean community is, like Bill and I, conservative. I'm Palestinian Christian, and I think most Arabs and Muslims are really conservative, but they've kind of left the conservative movement. But you bring up an important point. This isn't about the Middle East for a lot of American voters. This is about issues like you point out: immigration, illegal aliens, migrants, taking money and taxes away from citizens who, like you, came in this country legally.
Yes, legally. But let me say this, Ray. The thing is, these illegal aliens are coming. They are bringing drugs to the country.
Some of them, yeah.
People are dying. They have they count every month, every day. People are dying more of drugs when Biden took over. People are dying of this intel and whatever they call them.
All right.
The narcotic.
Right.
Okay. Other thing. Why would we buy oil from another country when we have oil in our backyard? Okay. Why? We'll use our backyard oil, and we'll see. There's no reason for Biden to stop the oil drill. There was no reason for him 3.5 years ago. Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, Ted, listen, thank you for listening, and thank you for calling in. You brought up you raised a good point that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Thank you for listening and calling. The number's 248-557-3300. That raises an important point, doesn't it, Bill?
Well, before we get into some of Ted's comments, what is your opinion on the Democrat selection of the vice presidential candidate?
And I'm kind of waffling back and forth. I read some things where he's very moderate and he's open to, the issues that I have as an Arab American. But on the other hand, when it came to certain issues, he just couldn't find the strength to stand up to the Israeli lobby and, didn't want to fight with them. So I'm a little hesitant to figure this out. It's very confusing. The media doesn't want to report on it. They don't want to talk about it. The Israeli lobby, for all the complaining that we do about them, they are AIPAC. They're a network of political action committees. They have won 264 of the 264 races where they put money in. So they're doing something that I don't want to say right, but it's very effective. And the Arabs and Muslims, who are as wealthy as Jewish Americans, and the Israeli lobby predominantly, supported by Jews, but not just by Jewish Americans, but the Arab lobby. There is no Arab lobby. So a guy like Walz has to be careful, and even Kamala Harris, she has to be careful about how she talks about the Middle East. And I think Arabs, when they hear them being careful, I'm using air quotes, they take that as being pro-Israel. And I think Arabs need to be much more sophisticated, and Muslims need to be much more sophisticated in how they understand this whole issue. So I'm still undecided about all this. I may just throw away my vote and vote for Jill Stein just out of protest, because neither of the candidates I feel are addressing the issues that I support. But Ted brought up an issue that I completely support, and Donald Trump would be the guy that would solve it, and that's the border issue. We need to do something about that. I'm paying money like crazy, whether I'm Arab or non-Arab, doesn't matter.
Well, I tell you, he brought up the point about the immigration. He brought up the point about inflation when he was talking about the oil and not pumping as much oil as we could in this country. That's one of the reasons that our oil prices, our gas prices are as high as they are, because we've cut back on that. When Trump was president, we not only had enough oil pumped in this country to service this country completely, but we were exporting it, which is, absolutely amazing. So we were energy dependent on ourselves, and we were selling it. We were making a profit. So those are two issues that he brought up. And there was a third issue that he brought up also, but unfortunately, escapes me at the present time. But they were very good. He was a well-informed.
Non-Middle Eastern issues, non-Middle Eastern. These are American issues he brought up. These are economy, jobs. These are the fundamental issues. I mean, you could have Middle East policy, but then if you don't have a job or you can't pay your bills, what good does it do you? You're here in the United States, not in the Middle East. That's an interesting dilemma, right, for Arab and Muslim voters to decide what they're doing. 248-557-3300 is our phone number. My guest with me is Bill Lipinski. He was a congressman from 1983 until 2005 in a district in Chicago and the southwest suburbs, which have the largest Palestinian population of any state in one concentrated regional district. They divided that third district up, as you know, Bill, which used to be one of your districts. I think used to be the fifth, and then later the third district. They made sure to divide up that Arab district into 5 different districts. So just to kind of ensure that the Arabs didn't go too nuts with their
wanted to have
politics.
representation for the Arabs in all of those districts. That's
Yes.
there wasn't no,
Oh,
there was no ulterior motives there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure. All right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, 248-557-3300, 248-557-3300. We want your calls. We have to take another and final break. I just want to point out, too, that my radio show on sponsored and hosted by Arab News, the Ray Hanania radio show, launches on August 15th, this Thursday at 5 p.m. Detroit time. And we'll be talking with a bunch of guests about the polling that was done by the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee that shows how Arabs and Muslims are going to vote, who they prefer. Jill Stein takes 80% of those votes, according to the poll, but we're going to talk about that. So you want to join me Thursday at 5 o'clock every week for an election special. Bill Lipinski I'm going to have him come on the radio show during that season also to talk and offer some insight. I'm Ray Hanania. We will be right back here at WNZK AM 690 right after these messages.
With more than 30,000 successful in vitro fertilizations, IVF Michigan is now ranked as one of America's best fertility clinics, according to Newsweek magazine. IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders in high-quality fertility care. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 9 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. A founding member, American board-certified Dr. Nicholas Shama, is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. He has performed over 20,000 successful IVF cases, and it's helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. When it's time to get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at one of America's best fertility clinics, call IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio toll-free at 855-952-9600. 855-952-9600.
In a perfect world, everyone would be a perfect driver.
Hands at 9 and 3, everyone.
9 and 3.
Everyone would follow all the rules.
Please, go ahead and merge. I'll make room.
Thank you, fellow driver.
And nothing unexpected would ever happen. Even the squirrels would know the right time to safely cross the road. In this perfect world, you wouldn't have to wear a seatbelt. But in case you hadn't noticed, we don't live in a perfect world. About 1,000 people in Michigan die each year in vehicle crashes, and thousands more are injured. Wearing your seatbelt reduces your risk of death in a crash by 45% in a car and by 60% in a pickup truck. So until we find a perfect world to drive in, make our imperfect world safer by buckling up. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
And welcome back to Radio Ballady and the partner program today, Two Guys on Politics podcast. I'm Ray Hanania, the host of the radio show and the co-host of Two Guys on Politics, which is at twoguysonpolitics.com on YouTube, with my co-host Bill Lipinski. He was a former congressman from originally the 5th District in Illinois, which became the 3rd District later. He served from 1983 until 2005. He really understands politics, and he shares the same somewhat view that I have as Reagan Democrats. We're conservative Democrats, and I think most Arabs and Muslims are conservative. So they don't like to call themselves Reagan Democrats. They'll just call themselves conservative Democrats, Bill.
Ray, let me ask you
Reagan
about the abortion issue. How is the abortion issue looked at in the Arab and Muslim communities?
Well, that's an interesting question. Most Arabs and Muslims oppose abortion, at least freewheeling abortion, where abortion, they oppose abortion being used as birth control.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that my parents were opposed to abortion, but would tolerate and allow abortion in the case of where the life of the mother or the child was in jeopardy, or if it involved rape or incest, and only during the first trimester, the beginning of the first trimester, because if you didn't decide that if you had been raped and you couldn't decide what to do by the 9th month, you should have that baby. So the Arab and Muslim community is basically against, abortion being openly used anytime you want as a pill for not having kids.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering where they stood on that issue, because it seems to me that what I have heard, what you have said, what I have read, that the Arab American community and the Muslim community, as far as the issues go, they seem to lean more Republican than
very Republican.
Why is it that in the past it doesn't seem like they voted that heavily Republican, though?
Well, they used to vote Republican. I mean, going back, I remember my dad had a AU H2O sign in our window for Barry Goldwater. That was his sign, AU H2O. I loved it. I think I still have a copy of it someplace. But Arab Americans and Muslim Americans were pushed out of the Republican Party by this new kind of conservatism that focused on foreign relations more than on domestic politics. So today's Republican Party is pretty much run by an evangelical movement of Christians who don't view Christian Arabs from the Middle East or Muslims from the Middle East as somebody that they would identify with. They identify with a new kind of view of the world, and it offends, Christians who are from where Jesus was born.
Yes.
So they were pushed out, and also because of the rise of the pro-Israel movement, they really got a lot of support from the Republicans. They continue to get a lot of support from Republicans. So as you can see, when we were talking to Ted, there's a balance here that it's divided. On the one hand, we support a lot of the issues that the Republicans stand for. On the other hand, we support a lot of the issues that the Democrats say they support. The problem for the Arabs and the Democrats is they don't believe the Democrats are genuine. I think a lot of Democrats are influenced by, pro-Israeli funding also. So they're going to talk the talk, but won't walk the walk. So I don't know what I'd do. If, as an Arab American, there isn't much of a choice, I don't think, out there. 248-557-3300 if you think there's a better choice. We actually only have a few more minutes, Bill. So I don't know if you have any other issues that we want to talk about before we sign off.
Well, I just wanted to comment that you were saying that you don't know what the Arabs Americans and Muslim Americans wish that they had a different choice than the two choices that they have. Well, I think the vast majority of the Americans feel the same way, truthfully. Now, the Democrats with a new presidential candidate are trying to mask the fact that Joe Biden was so unpopular. But I'm not so sure that their candidate is going to be as popular in the future as she is now. She's new. She hasn't sat down for any kind of extensive interview whatsoever. She has never been known as a deep thinker. She's been known more as a very good campaigning politician. She has a great smile. A couple of people said that they think that her smile rivals Oprah Winfrey's smile. So we have to see how she performs. But my point is that all Americans wish that we had other choices, but we don't. So we have to either take one of the two main party candidates or cast a protest vote by voting for Stein or voting for Kennedy or not voting for the presidency at all. It's a very, very unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in.
And I know Arab American voters are in a very interesting quagmire because they got a tough choice, because African Americans have been the biggest supporters of the Palestinian cause in this country. Now, Kamala Harris is half Black. Her father was Jamaican Black from Jamaica. Her mother was from India, Tamil Indians, I believe, from India in the Far East. And not supporting her or criticizing her has caused some African Americans to be upset, saying, wait a minute, we support you all the time. Why aren't you supporting us? So that's a problem for Arab Americans. They need to decide what's the priority in this election. Do they vote for a third party candidate and anger the African American community by not supporting Kamala Harris? Or do they vote on principle and, not win anything and just come what may, but make an important point to the Democrats? If they cost her the election, believe me, they're going to blame it on Arabs and Muslims not supporting her. The media is going to do that anyway because we're the bad guys. We got 2 minutes, really, Bill. I don't know if you want any final thoughts from you, Bill Lipinski.
My only thought is that as I've said on many, many occasions, you only get the kind of government that you deserve. And by that, I mean, if you don't vote, if you don't participate, if you don't articulate your position on where you stand, so the political leadership knows where you stand, you are not going to get the kind of government that you want. Also, you have to remember, as the second greatest president of the 20th century, Ronald Reagan said, if I could get 70% of what I want, I think that's a great victory. And I think more people in this country should look at it that way. If you get 70%, that's a great victory. Enjoy it and be happy and come back in the future and try to get the other 30%. Ray, it's been a pleasure to be on your program here this morning. I hope your listeners enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed being on it.
And that's one of the reasons I always supported Reagan, because of that 70% principle, I call it. His principle. There's nobody that in politics that you're going to agree with 100%. It's impossible. So there are things that Kamala Harris is going to do that I don't completely agree with, but I have to decide, am I willing to accept 70% or do I want 100%? And when you go for 100%, you lose every time. All right, listen, go to twoguysonpolitics.com to catch our podcast with myself, Ray Hanania, and my co-host, Bill Lipinski, the former congressman. I want to thank him for joining us this morning. I want to thank Layla El Husseini from U.S. Arab Radio for allowing us to do this show today. Please tune in on Thursday at 5 p.m. here at WNZK AM 690 when I do my special, the Ray Hanania radio show for the special election coverage. And remember, we're on Facebook. This program is on U.S. Arab Radio Facebook on Facebook.com/. Arab Radio. We will talk to you again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great week. Bye-bye, everybody.
WN